But this is a very movable piece of equipment here. What I should do is just rip it off so I can actually use it. But when we raise our arm up, this bottom tail end is going to come swinging this way. Okay, this is going to swing out, and this little tail that we see down here is going to be more over here, because it's, once again, all connected to one, that bottom end. And that's one of those things too, on the other hand, when you were a little kid, and once again someone was leaning at the edge of the pool, and they had their arm like this, you often saw the bottom edge of this sticking almost out of someone's back. Am I right? And that's because that was then being pushed back that way, because of what was going on is when you lean on this, and certain things act or react. What's going on is the arm is supporting the body, and we're slumping this way. It's not that we're pushing up with the arm. Gravity is coming into play. And gravity has a lot to do with our muscles. But that scapula in the back gets pulled around. Of course, we need the two muscles, pectoral minor in the front and the sartorius muscles, to once again get this thing to be moving properly. Because we can't just rely on one muscle. It has to have companionship. It has to have some other things. Now, to continue the problem of pulling the shoulder in, we need another muscle that's gonna do the major work of that, and it's in our back. Actually, this is maybe a little bit too upright. It's more like that when I think about it, from what I'm about to show you. Spine runs through here, and actually Y's out. It gets about that big at the bottom. And we have a group of muscles, we have two muscles, by the way, that run through here. And they come in, and they start here at the edge of the spine, and they run along and catch this other edge of the scapula. My little guy here. And they run in here, along here, and to here. Okay, and that's the rhomboid muscle. Rhomboid, R-O-M-B-O-I-D. I don't think it's a Y, I think it's an I. And that muscle, pretty thick, solid muscle. And actually, you once again back to the person at the beach. If someone is leaning, and they're leaning back like this, and all that, that bone is being pushed this way, that muscle will bulge out. You'll actually see a bump right there. It's called the rhomboid bulge. Bizarre name. If the arm is pulled all the way forward, you might not be able to see the muscle at all, because it's actually stretching out back to, because these muscles are pulling the arm forward. That muscle is the one that pulls it back. Warring relatives or siblings or married couples, whatever the case may be. One does one thing, the other does the opposite. So keep in mind, up here the brain is saying, okay, everyone get together and do this. And when that brain says that, that means one group of muscles does one thing, the other group of muscles says, we gotta let go for here, because they're trying to pull that arm forward. And so the rhomboid muscle is right in here. And it hooks along the upper edge and along the inside edge of the scapula in the back. And there's one on both sides, of course. It's going to do this. Further moving the arm in front is the pectoral major, which actually starts and runs all the way here. And it actually hooks in about here, about 1/4, almost to 1/3 down the arm. Various tendons, muscle groups themselves. A muscle is nothing more than a tendon in one direction, a fine line tendon. This material here, which is the muscle itself, okay, and then another tendon, okay, and it's the tendons that hook into parts of the bones. Muscles don't go directly to joints in that area, because that wouldn't articulate anything, it wouldn't move anything. They have to go somewhere down the bone or up the bone somewhere, so that it has the leverage to move it. And that's one of the reasons pectoral major is going to go in down about here. And actually it's going to cover over these areas and be over the top of pectoral minor. It's going to be that shape right there. And you actually see it on all of us. You can see how it creates the front edge of your armpit. Something you've noticed many, many years, all your lives. You're drawing the figure and the arm is out. Head is here. Okay, and the neck. And the arm is out, outstretched. There's a hand way out here someplace. Okay. And we'll get into the trapezius muscle in a minute. I've talked about it last week. It's here. Clavicle is there. You'll actually see that triangular shape on most people. Deltoid muscle, which we'll talk to you about in a moment, will be here. And this is the front view. We have the sternum running through here. And pectoral muscle is going to be in this area. And of course, the upper body is doing this. And you see the arm is out. And what goes on is the shoulder creates this shape like that. But then you've seen this before, where the pectoral muscle is going to come through, and the bicep muscle is going to swing this way. You get that shape to happen. Have you all ever seen that before, noticed it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of those lovely things that I find. There's a lot of little things when we draw the figure. You'll see how one shape leads you to another. The beauty and the grace of the figure. And, you know, a lot of us forget about these things, or we just don't seem to pay as much attention to them. There's the same similar things happen with the legs. Muscles are always doing this. They're interlacing. And a good example of where they're interlacing is here in sartorius. Right there. This muscle that wraps around and through. Because you've seen those fingers, especially on boxers, by the way. Something that muscle does, it pulls the arm forward like this. And in boxers have, once again, depending on the weight class, George Foreman, you hardly ever saw him. But on other boxers, the ones that are in good physical shape and have very little body fat, you notice it a lot. That you see those finger-like shapes. And those aren't ribs, those are actually muscles. And someone like me, it's ribs. And well, not even on me. But on well-developed individuals that spend all their days punching something, the arm is going this way, that's the muscle that's pulling the arm forward. Okay. Where those fingers come into play, in particular, it's not the ribs per se, but let's bring down here, I mentioned the abdominal muscles last week, and the line of insertion is doing this on the front, the line of insertion. And so we have these abdominal muscles, and there's like 3 or 4 sets of them that run through here. There's a second little group, and they're in pairs. Once again, kind of like this. There's another one, I believe, right there, and then the last one are real long. They go straight down to the pubic bone. Okay, and you get roughly the idea of the six-pack that, and once again, I never had. Okay. On some of you, you've seen this at the beach. Now, on the right and left side of this, we have a muscle that's called the obliques. And the oblique muscles go from the bottom of the rib cage here to the pelvis. And they're specifically there to help us rotate the body. Okay, just turn right and left. And they hook into the rib cage in individual fingers. Once again, the muscle on the outside edge hooks in up here and swings down and then hooks into the upper edge of the iliatic crest, the upper part of the pelvis. And this one swings in. What goes on is the sartorius comes over the top, this one swings in underneath it. Sartorius comes over the top, swings underneath it. We end up with a group of muscles that are doing this, that make this transition so we don't have that hollow gap that you see here.